Hi, everybody. We are here today with one of our favorite creators, Justin Chambers, to pick his brain a little bit about the creator economy and producing content for brands. Justin has been a longtime social native creator and has worked on, I believe, now over 190 campaigns, pushing on 200 now.
Yeah.
So you definitely have a lot of knowledge and wisdom to share with our community. We're very excited to be chatting with you today. To introduce myself to everybody watching, I'm Deb. I work on the operations team here at Social Native. And we also have Val on the call. Val, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Val. I'm also on the operations team with Deb and also working with creator communications at times as well.
Justin, do you want to kick us off a little bit? We'd love to just hear a little bit about you, kind of how you got started in the creator world.
For
Tell us
sure.
about yourself.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Justin Chambers, and it's funny because when you said 190, it's like very humbling because you asked the question of when I got started as a creator, and I feel like I got started with you guys years ago, when this idea of the influencer started, and so it's kind of like crazy to see where we are today and all the things we've done together. And I know from the pro side and the influencer side, I mean, we've racked up the campaigns, but we've learned a lot along the way. And so it's just like it's crazy. It's crazy that it's been so many, but I'm still learning. I'm still learning along the way. It's still exciting. There's still new opportunities. And for those watching who don't know, I am an influencer, I'm a creator. There's just multiple different avenues that I've bled into learning about this business and learning about the things that you can do beyond just doing a review or a testimonial about a product. And so I've been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more on, I guess, the types of content, the types of ways that you've interacted with brands? I know you have a lot of different kinds of campaigns under your belt, but kind of the different methods that you take with your content.
Yeah, I always come from a narrative perspective when I'm utilizing content. So I always like to think like, when it comes to the audience who's going to be viewing this piece of content, how will they receive the product? How is that going to fit into their life? And so the types of content that I do vary. I've done fitness stuff, I've done clothing stuff, I've done business stuff, I've done financial stuff, I've done it all. But what really unites all of them is like basically the idea that there's somebody out there that needs this and that is going to come across it at some point in time. So I do know there's a lot of influencers that are just like fitness based. There's like foodies. I've done food stuff too. It's like, but we all interact with these things in different retrospects. And I kind of love them all for different ways. One, I love food. So anytime I get to do a food one, I'm like, yes. But I love fitness as well. And so the type of content that I do just reflects my interests in life. And so I don't really believe in targeting yourself as one type of influencer. Like, yes, you can hone in on that. And a lot of people don't necessarily have the bandwidth to have such a wide palette. So they go, I'm just going to hone in on being a fitness influencer. I'm going to hone in on being a fitness creator or a food creator or a lifestyle creator. But if you have the opportunity to broaden your palette and say, I'm going to move beyond being an influencer for this and be a brand myself, as in these are the things that I find interest in, I think that's what elevates you to the next level and makes you more appealing to brands to go like, we just like this person's opinion and this person's perspective on life and our products. And so for me, I've gone beyond just being singular in the content that I do. And it's a wide gamut of stuff. It's like any campaign that kind of comes my way, I see it as an opportunity to just give my perspective. I hope that was a good answer. I think I was
that was amazing. And I love that point of view. And I love the, your ability to make yourself and your content appeal to different audiences and different brands and people and demographics. But you certainly do have a little bit of extra experience with that and extra production experience. Would love to hear about that side of your life and that side of your content. I know we're focusing mainly on your influencer content here, but with 191 campaigns, those don't all live on your Instagram handle. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
No, for sure. Well, I am a professional filmmaker, but that I don't want to say that in the stance like you have to be a professional to do the things that I've done. But what it does is it goes back to what I was saying about being able to have the bandwidth to widen your palette of brands that you work with and being able to see things from different perspectives and understand the audience that this might reach. As a professional filmmaker, you really learn storytelling techniques that allow you to basically go, hey, I know what audience this is for, and I know the story that needs to be told with this, so I can change how I perceive it or how I'm going to make this content to be different than the fitness stuff that I do, and hone in on somebody who's more interested in food and what they gravitate towards. So being a professional filmmaker and storyteller and content creator allows you to have that bandwidth to expand on the way you do it. Because I see some influencers, they make excellent content just as being influencers. So that's why I really want to hone in. You don't have to be a professional. Where the professional stuff comes in is it allows you to do campaigns where maybe you're not the influencer, but you hired an actor or you hired a model and you're directing them and you're saying, this is what we're trying to do here. And your familiarity with the environment goes like, I know what an influencer would do here, but we're going to do it on an elevated, more professional scale to be more on brand with in-house content for that company. And being a professional allows you to kind of do that, as well as monetizing how many streams of income you have to allow you to be able to be full-time, So you move into different, like being a professional allows you to do that. And so running a production company allows me to go, hey, I'm going to take this influencer job, but just based on putting the whole production together, not actually being the talent. Or I'm going to take this job and I'm going to go from the angle of the brand and how the brand would want to run a campaign, and I'm going to do the whole production that way. So as a professional, it's allowed me to have multiple streams of income, all derived from the influencer world and the content creating world, because that's where we're at these days. It's like streaming, social media, Facebook, Instagram. That's where everybody's advertising at, and user generated content is one of the leading ways that these companies are getting their products in people's hands. And that was stemmed from the influencer. So you kind of have to understand both in order to play the game.
Totally. Have you found, I mean, we definitely have seen quite the shift, as you said, into UGC content, user-generated content. So have you been finding as well that there's been, you're getting more campaigns, or seeing more of a demand for you on the influencer and the user-generated content side?
Yeah, I am seeing a lot of the the user-generated stuff. It was interesting because at the start, it was like, they wanted a lot of professional looking content, and now it's shifting to where they're like, we want it to be professional looking, but we also want it to look like it could have been done by the everyday person. And now it's gotten really lax in the sense of like, we just want to see a real person actually utilizing this and that honest reaction. And so it's a happy blend of a lot of different things, and it's still evolving. That's why it's so interesting. And I think when the pandemic hit, before the pandemic, a lot of this was way more self-contained, with a lot of companies actually like facilitating a lot of this. And then when COVID hit, a lot of these companies were like, well, this is the future. Like, we need to all get on board with this. So they either brought in-house companies, social media managers in-house or whatever, or contacted companies like Social Native and said, we need to start marketing this way if we want our business to like live. And then I've seen over the past 2 years, it's just exploded with the social media content in all different facets,
Totally. You touched upon a really interesting point that I think is something that we always strive to achieve with our creators, is that honest and authentic content. So what's your kind of advice? How do you, find ways to bring that authenticity and that honest review and reaction to your content without making it too scripted or forced?
Yeah. I used to, back in the day, I would get a product and I'd go, okay, I just know exactly like how to shoot this. Like, I'm just going to shoot it. Now I actually get products and I use them or I experience them. And then I try to always highlight what I liked and what worked for me and utilize that as my stemming point versus being like, what is everybody going to want to know about this, like this product? Like say it's like moisturizer. It's like, instead of going with those fluffy words, like, waking up every day hydrated and stuff like that. You come from a perspective of, I've always had dried skin and I've honestly tried everything. And then I tried this moisturizer and it's for the first time I actually feel like my skin's not dry. It's just the way you present changes when you actually experience the products, but you can still deliver it in a way that's appealing and marketable.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the, focus on actually, and I hate that it's not a given in a lot of instances, but really focusing on utilizing the product and getting familiar with it and being able to have that real honest review and opinions on it based on your own feedback and your own experience, as opposed to hitting points that you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
With that said, are there any products, campaigns, brands that you've worked with that you're like, this was my favorite brand that I worked with Social Native? Tell us some of your favorites.
There's actually a lot, but the one that comes to mind, and I think it's just because I've done so many of them and had the opportunity to really take a creative lead in them, is like probably Crocs. It's just been so fun working with that brand and getting to do so many different styles of content to the point to where it's just been comfortable. Like, it's almost like second nature. And we've done a lot. I mean, we've done so many different campaigns with Crocs, and a variety from professional stuff to user generated stuff. And so if I had to say, I would be like, Crocs has been one. And plus, Crocs is so creative in just the product. And me as a creative person, it's just been exciting to like get to push that envelope,
Yeah, absolutely. I know we worked together on a few of those Crocs campaigns, and you'll always have incredible content that comes out of it. And I think another great point on that is just allowing that creativity. We always provide a set of guidelines and requirements, but definitely encourage the creativity of our creators. So I want to hear from you where that line is that you think is best of providing that leeway for you to have fun with it and be creative.
No, it's actually good, because sometimes some campaigns have very strict guidelines, and then some campaigns are a little loose, and then you find yourself as a creator kind of like, what's the happy medium? And what I find that works for me is, tell me everything I can't do. It's like, tell me everything I can't do, because then I can focus on what I can do. But when it's a little bit of 50-50, you're kind of just like, well, if I want to do this, but hold on, it's saying you can't do a version of this and stuff. So it's very kind of back and forth, but also understanding what the brand's intention is, too, is like really helpful. Like for me, as far as like where I find inspiration and creativity with every campaign, it's like, I'm always thinking of things, and I'm always like, watching stuff, looking at things, keeping my eyes open, because you'll be surprised, like, where you'll get inspiration from. You might be watching something, and then 3 months later something comes up and you just start doing stuff, and you're not even realizing it's because you were influenced from something else you watched 3 months earlier. And you're like, now I have a great idea for this. For me, I always like to have a little bit less restriction on the creative side and more restriction on, like, these are the things that we don't want to do, and these are the things, this is our intention. This is being used for this. we can't say these things, we can't show these things, no tattoos, no, a male audience is who this is. You know what I mean? Those types of things I do like, because then it allows me to go, okay, I have to think outside the box, and I have to go, I need to focus on these things that are all okay for me. Campaigns that are like too creatively specific sometimes become restricting, because if you don't have that freedom to like go and work on the fly and go like, okay, I can work within these, you might get blocked creatively because you're not seeing it that way creatively, and they're telling you have to do it this way,
And then I guess advice for the larger creator community, how do you combat that? How do you still bring your, because I know you've done it.
Yeah, I know.
And still made incredible content. So how do you, like, what's your process for still bringing your personality through and having your POV shine through when you do have a lot of requirements and guidelines that you have to meet?
I mean, you make a good point, because sometimes it's hard. This is not, a lot of people think, oh, you just have to take a picture of yourself. What a life you have. And it's so much more than that, it's become so much more than that. And it's definitely not easy. And when you have so many restrictions on people telling you like how you have to portray this product, in what environment you have to do it, and if it's very much not in your character, you start getting blocked. And what I try to do is if it's so many restrictions, I go, let me see this from a perspective of somebody who would enjoy these types of things, who would enjoy being in this environment, who would enjoy this product at this event or doing this thing. And let me go from that perspective, instead of trying to be like, okay, Justin would do it this way, it's almost like acting or performing. It's like you're going on stage, you're playing a character that might not necessarily be exactly who you are, but it's still authentic to who the demographic of the product would be. So you don't necessarily feel like you're lying about it. You feel like you're inserting yourself into the community that this product is for.
You may have answered this, but what do you think your biggest challenge is with being a creator? What are some of the challenges you face, and how you combat those?
The biggest challenge, okay, I'm gonna be honest,
Yeah.
is I think getting enough work. I think the market has gotten very saturated with influencers and content creators and all of that kind of stuff, because it has seen as a way of like being able to work from home, being able to have a family and have all these kind of things and still be able to make an income to provide for your family. And because of that, there's like, back when I started, they were far and few in between. Now they're just like, you throw a rock and it's like, I think the biggest challenge is getting enough work to sustain the lifestyle of being a professional creator, and that's why I do think you have to really push yourself to be dependable, to communicate, to reach out, to take opportunities, whether they meet your standards or not, because they can then provide an opportunity for you to meet somebody or open a door to another opportunity. And at the end of the day, if you are truly a creative, it's just like working out or just like going on. It's like you have to train it all the time. So doing stuff all the time helps you just perform better. So where it is a challenge, I definitely think it's something that can be overcome, but you just have to be willing to put in the work, and it's hard work.
With that, because I think you've touched on a great point, which is, really giving that kind of advice and guidance to the rest of our creator community. So gonna switch gears a little bit now. We did open up the opportunity for our Instagram followers and our creator community to submit questions for you and to gain from your wisdom and knowledge. So Val's going to go through a few of those questions, and hopefully we can answer some of our creators' questions for them.
Absolutely. We've got some good questions here from our creator base. And actually the first one really stems from what you were just talking about, Justin, about getting a lot of campaigns and appealing to brands. What are your tips for creators who do want to get more campaigns and are trying to make this a full-time thing and get more and more campaigns and more experience?
I would say the biggest thing that I run into is being dependable. You have to, like, if someone's going to entrust you with their brand, they have to trust you and be able to depend on you. So over communicate, hit your deadlines, perform at your absolute best. It doesn't have to be like the greatest thing. I'm not asking for like an Oscar winning, movie or anything. It's just like, show up. And the more you show up, the more you're going to find yourself as the only person who did. And then you're going to get that job. So many times before that I found that it's just because an influencer backed out, or they weren't available, or they didn't complete the job. And you're there to kind of pick up the pieces, because you do communicate, you are available, you are dependable. And that is the number one thing that's hard for people, is like they don't find the importance in actually being somebody that you can rely on. And when it comes to these brands and the big money that they're spending behind these campaigns, they want to entrust somebody that they know if they pick up the phone and call and go, hey, we have this problem, that you're going to answer within a timely manner,
That's so true. And I think even in the operation team, the word dependable is music to our ears.
Yeah.
And that's something super important whenever we're working on campaigns. Now, I have a question about kind of the life cycle of a creative, especially we've seen a big boom in the last few years, but do you see yourself doing this long term, or how long do you see yourself doing this? Or do you think it's something that can be maintained for decades at a time, for example?
Yeah, I like to call this like the J-Lo or the Rock effect. It's like you start as a content creator, but then you find yourself expanding into other facets of the business of being creative. So it is a long-term job. But what you'll find is as you grow, you're going to have other facets within this business that are generating income for you. So it's like, for me, starting out as an influencer and product reviews, but now creating campaigns for other influencers, hired to do commercials, hired to do, brand style content, and being an ambassador for products. It's like all these different sources are generated to create a full cycle business that you then can move into when you start getting out of that early stage of just being an influencer. So I think there's a way to make this a long-term goal, but you have to think, there's product collaborations. You've seen a lot of your favorite influencers. They're like, this person / comfy couches and stuff. They're starting to like create their own products within these brands that they've represented, and starting to get commissions and sales and stuff like that. You grow it, and that's where I kind of said earlier in this conversation, you go from just being this targeted influencer to then actually being a brand yourself and influencing others as a brand,
That definitely makes sense. If we go back to those first steps, could you speak a little bit about what it looks like at the very beginning when you're just getting started, taking your account from a personal account to a creator account? Like, what do those first months and years look like?
I just say it's hard. It's challenging, because once you take your account from a personal to a business account, you have to deal with the algorithms. You have to deal with so many things pushing against you. And honestly, it's really unfortunate, these like algorithms that they have nowadays for content and all that kind of stuff, because it doesn't benefit the early start influencers. It actually doesn't even benefit the influencers that have made this a career, because a lot of us strive to like house our content to where we present it in such a fine way that we really can't be posting once every day or twice a day or making reels every 5 seconds and all these kind of things, especially once we've expanded into the other facets of the creative lifestyle. And so therefore you get pushed down by the algorithm, and it's even harder for your general audience that do follow you to even see your content without boosting it. And some of these influencers don't have the capital to boost their posts. so that it even gets in front of their followers or in front of anyone, you know? And so to start out with, not saying that it's impossible, and not saying that, you know, you can't do it, but just understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but you're going to really have to like get in there and work. And it will be discouraging. It's like this roller coaster of emotion, you know, going through it, because you might have one piece of content that does really well, and then another piece of content that doesn't. And then you're just like, what happened? And a lot of it's not necessarily that it was dependent on you. It could have just been the flavor of, like, sometimes I'll see a spike, sometimes it'll go down, and I'm just like, what's the difference? And it just very well could be what was being pushed that day, you know? So in those early stages, it's definitely difficult. I would just say, just find the love in being creative first, and just focus on that. The money will come, you know? Don't focus on trying to be famous. Just focus on trying to be creative. And then you'll find that the goal is to be able to create a life for yourself and your family by being creative. And you'll find that at the end of the day, you'll just be happy, you know?
Definitely. That's great advice. We also had some creators that were asking about, in your experience, what tips do you have for creators who are not pro photographers or don't have that experience with pro cameras? They're just really user generated with an iPhone, for example. What tips do you have in those cases?
Okay, 2 tips. So God said, let there be light. So focus on your sound, make sure it's good, and make sure your lighting is good. You know, if you at least focus on those 2 things, it doesn't matter whether you're professional or not, your content's at least going to be able to be understood and visually appealing. And so those would be my two pieces of advice, and that can trickle into anything you do. And it's 2 of the easiest, because everyone knows like what light they look great in, and you know, and I would say the audio thing's a little bit harder, but as long as you just focus on trying to get some good audio, you'll be good.
That's brilliant and very easy to remember. Fantastic. Now, for those who are looking to get more into pro photography or use professional equipment, we had a creator ask what equipment you use or what equipment you recommend for filming.
Okay. I'm biased to like Sony, so I use like all Sony products. My lenses vary, like Tamron, you know, and all these kind of things. Like I use anamorphic, but I would say if you're looking for the actual camera that I use a Sony, which is great for video content, which is what I do mainly. Photography stuff, you're probably going to have influencers say, oh, I use a Canon or a Nikon or a Fuji and stuff, which I do have a Fuji as well. But if you're looking to just do photography content, maybe you want to lean into some of those. Although Sony's really great, like when you get into those higher level cameras, but they might just be a little bit too expensive for the beginner film, you know, the beginner influencer to like invest in such an expensive camera that's like $4 or $5 grand, you know? So I would say if you're looking into doing a lot more video content, Sony's probably your bet. If you're looking to do more photography, I really love the look of Canon and Fuji cameras, and so that's what I'd probably recommend. But I use Sony.
Do you have any editing apps and software that you would recommend for creators to do that, whether that be, you know, more high level or ones mobile apps that you're utilizing on your phone?
Yeah, 2 of my go-to is like InShot, and then I use Lightroom for mobile. I obviously have a lot of the Adobe software suites because I use it not only professionally but on my mobile device, and it's given me a lot of creative freedom to make my content look, even if I take a picture on my phone. And that's the great thing about Lightroom actually, is like when I use my professional camera, when I use my phone, I can match them similarly so that the content looks cohesive, and it's really user friendly. Like they've made Lightroom mobile really user friendly, and I can pretty much guarantee 80% of the influencers you guys see with the same look across all of their profiles or the same look of content is using a Lightroom preset that's probably like 99 cents, and then you then can make all your content look like it was done by a professional filmmaker. But what's going to set you apart is good lighting.
That's awesome. That's really useful advice just to hear it from someone else about what they've been using, especially after so many campaigns. We definitely trust your point of view on that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's worth mentioning that we did have someone leave a comment that they really like your tattoos. So throw that out there.
Thank you. I have so many of them.
We also had a comment just asking, you had mentioned previously, like try to get as much experience as you can. It really hones your skill when you're doing multiple campaigns.
Yeah.
A question about just kind of the balance of creating authentic content on your channel, but also having sponsored content. What are your thoughts there about making sure that your channel is not just pure sponsored content? How to find the right balance?
It's difficult because what I've found to work for me, because I've gone to a level to where I do so much professional work, and I'm still trying. I'm still learning. I'm learning a lot all the time. So I wouldn't necessarily say like my word is Bible, but I've utilized story a lot to be just more that like reality show. Like this is me right then and there. This is what's going on in my life. And like I've turned my profile more into my professional content because I do so much of it. So it's not like they're one and far and few between. It's like I will be working on a campaign for some avenue of my job every single day. So if I'm posting something, it's chances are it's from something professional that I've done, whether it's like me as the ambassador or me, behind the camera doing the work. And so I utilize story for that. And I think what a lot of people can probably do who are much not as professional, like not going the professional route and strictly sticking with, I love to be an influencer, I love this kind of thing, but I also love my personal life and all that, and I utilize this as a hobby. I would just make sure color-wise, cohesiveness, between the colors of your things, quality-wise, just ensure that the quality of all the content is similar, whether it's a professional influenced ambassador campaign or just your personal things. I always shy away from, social media has a tendency to be very like artificial, like you're only showing the highlights, the highlight reel, basically. You can find, I appreciate the people that are just much more honest, and in the standpoint of like, hey, I went to the gym today, I took a snapshot, but you can tell that they're just familiar with how the camera works and all that to show that side versus like them going like, okay, I'm only going to show my the running and stuff that I do if it's for a campaign, So I think that looks different a little bit for everybody. But I would say always think about just the quality in which you put something out. If you want it to look cohesive, and keep it in that same family of quality,
That's awesome. Our last question that we had was about working with Social Native. How did you find Social Native, and why do you work with a platform like Social Native?
Wow. I don't even know how I found Social Native because it's been so many years. I honestly cannot tell you how I found Social Native because I think it's been like 8 or 9 years. How old is Social Native? Like I literally think I was like beta or alpha influencer.
I think we're about 8 years old now, so you may have been one of the first.
I literally think I was like one of the first. And I honestly don't remember. I don't know if we like crossed paths on Instagram and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And we connected that way, but it was literally like 8 years ago. It was, yeah, it's crazy. But what I love, like, since I can't remember how we became friends, it's like why I've always stuck with you guys, and you guys do provide a majority of my influencer-based content, is because I trust you guys. It's like, I'm not worried about getting scammed. I'm not worried about giving my information out, that these people are going to utilize it or steal from me, my payment information. I'm not worried about not getting paid for a campaign. I'm entrusting that you guys have vetted the brand, you've vetted the products, that you are, you know, you're basically brokeraging this deal to make sure it's safe for me. And so that's why, I mean, I get hit up all the time, like from direct brands and direct, you know, whether it's through Instagram or whether through email. And sometimes you just feel like you just can't trust these things. You know, they'll be like, oh, if you pay for shipping and da 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 da, da. Or they'll be like, oh, you know, you just have to buy the product and then you'll get a 50% commission on each one you sell. There's like all of these different ways they try to target the influencer. And if you don't have a team around you that spends all day long vetting that system, it's like you risk yourself just being in danger of being scammed. And so that's what I've loved most about working with you guys is like, I don't ever have that fear, and that same trust and dependability you have on me, I like to return the favor by, you know, being like, I trust and depend on you guys, you know, to really provide that safe peace of mind, you know.
Awesome. Those answers are going to be so useful to our creator base. So thank you so much, Justin, for your insight.
It's all honest. Like I honestly didn't rehearse any of these questions. I was like, I love being caught off guard because then I, you know, feel like you're going to get some authentic responses, and I have less time to think about it. So
100%. And just that initial gut reaction response that you've given is really helpful for our creator base. So I think we're going to wrap it up with some rapid questions with Deb.
So let's dive into some rapid fire questions. A little bit across the board, just some fun little questions to wrap us all up. We'll get started. First thing that comes to mind. So video or static content?
Video. Yeah, video. I love them both, but video.
Reels or stories?
Stories.
All right. iPhone content or professional content?
You're killing me. I'm going to say iPhone.
All right. Do you prefer to be in front of the camera or behind the camera?
Behind the camera. Although I love being in front, I honestly, but I'd probably say behind because I love just like being able to capture the moment.
What's your spirit animal?
The first thing that came to my mind was a fox. So we're gonna have to Google what that means. It's like, I was like, "What if your spirit animal is a fox? What is that?"
We're gonna have to dive into that one in the next interview.
Because that was the first animal that came to mind.
Favorite food?
Pizza.
Pizza. Final question. Are hot dogs considered a sandwich? Yes or no?
Oh. I'm gonna say no.
Perfect. Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time today. We had a great time chatting with you. And I'm sure all of our listeners are going to be so excited to hear your feedback and your wisdom and your thoughts. For everyone watching, you can find Justin at Just Chambers across all social platforms. So check him out. He's got some incredible content, and hopefully we'll be chatting with you again soon.
No, for sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you again for always thinking of me as you guys do. I really appreciate it. And, you know, just to say one last thing to the influencers out there who may be watching this and may be discouraged is like, I understand that it's hard, but there's room for everybody. And so I don't want you to be discouraged and think that you can't do something, because it could either be, you know, one day or day one.